This is Land of Havilah, Isaiah 36. The 4 chapters coming up are completely different from the rest of the book because they're history and not prophecy. The history will be familiar to anyone who's read 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. So far in the book, Isaiah has been prophesying that God would protect Judah from Assyria, especially in chapters 10, 30, and 31. Isaiah was alive and well to see it come to pass, as we'll see in the text. Verse 1. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, attacked all the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. The king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem to King Hezekiah with a large army. He stood by the aqueduct from the upper pool in the Fuller's Field highway. Then Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder came out to him. Comment, there's more information on this in 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, and in secular history that we'll throw in here. By the time of verses 1 to 3, the Assyrian Empire had already conquered or subjugated every kingdom in the Middle East, starting in Mesopotamia and bulldozing to the Mediterranean Sea. The only remaining significant pockets of resistance were Tyre and Jerusalem. Tyre survived on the basis that it was an island and easy to defend, but the odds of Jerusalem surviving seemed to be zero. In verse 1, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, had already captured the cities of Judah except for Jerusalem. He thinks Hezekiah's smartest move would be to surrender without any more fighting. He'd rather capture Jerusalem without a fight than have his army tied up in a costly siege. The problem from Sennacherib's viewpoint is that Hezekiah isn't rational. He's a religious zealot. He believes his God will protect him. Hezekiah has already called a meeting of the city and preached confidence that Yahweh will protect them, 2 Chronicles 32:6. The city responded and prepared defenses. They stopped up the springs outside the city so the Assyrians wouldn't have easy access to water. They built up the city wall and stockpiled weapons and shields. So in verse 2, Sennacherib sent an officer named Rabshakeh to try to talk some sense into them. He arrived with a large, intimidating army in verse 2. In verse 2, Rabshakeh stood just outside the city gate, the gate that received the highway that passed by the Fuller's Field. There was a dry aqueduct there. In verse 3, Hezekiah sent his man Eliakim and 2 recorders to the top of the wall to look down on Rabshakeh and hear what he had to say. Everyone on the wall had strict orders from Hezekiah not to respond, with Rabshakeh below and Eliakim and the other Jews above. Verse 4. Rabshakeh said to them, Now tell Hezekiah, Thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, What confidence is this in which you trust? I say that your counsel and strength for the war are only vain words. Now in whom do you trust that you've rebelled against me? Behold, you trust in the staff of this bruised reed, even in Egypt, which if a man leans on it, it'll go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh king of Egypt to all who trust in him. But if you tell me, we trust in Yahweh our God, isn't that he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away, and has said to Judah and to Jerusalem, You shall worship before this altar? Comment in verses 4 to 7, Rabshakeh says, What are you thinking? Do you think Egypt will come to the rescue? Or do you think Yahweh will come to the rescue? Hasn't Hezekiah offended Yahweh by removing his altars from the land and leaving only one left in Jerusalem? It was to Hezekiah's credit that he removed Yahweh's altars because in the law of Moses, all sacrifices should be in a central location, Deuteronomy 12:11-14. Rabshakeh goes on, verse 8, Now therefore please make a pledge to my master, the king of Assyria, and I'll give you 2,000 horses, if you're able on your part to set riders on them. Comment Rabshakeh says, Except I'll offer and will give you 2,000 horses if you can put riders on them. It was intimidating that the Assyrians had so many horses and Hezekiah so few men. Rabshakeh says, verse 9, How then can you turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants and put your trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Have I come up now without Yahweh against this land to destroy it? Yahweh said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it. Comment in verse 9, How do you have the strength left to repel even a small band of our soldiers, led by our least capable officer? And how will Egypt help? In verse 10, Rabshakeh claims Yahweh is with him, that Yahweh told him to come, that Yahweh told him, Go up against this land and destroy it. Coming up, Hezekiah's officials are afraid the common soldiers next to them on the wall listening to this will panic. They want Rabshakeh to switch from Hebrew to Aramaic so the commoners won't understand. Verse 11. Then Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah said to Rabshakeh, Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it, and don't speak to us in the Jews' language in the hearing of the people who are on the wall. But Rabshakeh said, Has my master sent me only to your master and to you to speak these words, and not to the men who sit on the wall, who will eat their own dung and drink their own urine with you? Comment Rabshakeh says he'll keep speaking in Hebrew because everyone needs to hear this. If we lay siege to the city, he says, you'll run out of food and water, and the common men will be drinking their own urine and eating their own feces. They have a right to know what's coming. Now Rabshakeh says loudly in Hebrew to strike as much fear into the city as he can, verse 13. Then Rabshakeh stood and called out with a loud voice in the Jews' language and said, Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, Don't let Hezekiah deceive you, for he'll not be able to deliver you. Don't let Hezekiah make you trust in Yahweh, saying, Yahweh will surely deliver us. This city won't be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, Make your peace with me, and come out to me, and each of you eat from his vine, and each one from his fig tree, and each one of you drink the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, Yahweh will deliver us. Have any of the gods of the nations delivered their lands from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Have they delivered Samaria from my hand? Who are they among all the gods of these countries that have delivered their country out of my hand, that Yahweh should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? Comment in verses 15 and 16, Rabshakeh tells the men on the wall, Don't let Hezekiah tell you Yahweh will save you. Just surrender and everything will be fine. We'll let you stay on your own land until we get around to relocating you. Then we'll take you to a land just as good. Rabshakeh makes captivity and relocation sound like it won't be so bad. In verses 18 to 20, he says, How can Yahweh deliver you? No God has ever been able to repel us, not the gods of Hamath, Arpad, Sepharvaim, or Samaria. Your God won't be any different. Now concerning the men on the wall, verse 21, But they remained silent and said nothing in reply, for the king's commandment was, Don't answer him. Then Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. Comment Hezekiah's response will be in Isaiah 37 next.